Hey guys, so I first and foremost want to just thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch my testimony video. I think I did film this at the right time since we're all quarantined. If you're watching this at a later time, it's good for you to know that I'm doing this during quarantine. Um, that is a big deal because there's been so much going on right now and people are stuck at home. We're all stuck at home. So you have nothing but time to think and to see things clearly and hopefully connect with God. And that's what I've been trying to do. Some of the time I've been, playing games on my phone. I deleted social media for right now. So I haven't been on that. I've been watching some Disney Plus and Netflix, but some of this other time I decided to spend on really connecting back with God. And during this time, I thought, when better than to film my testimony video? And that's exactly what this is going to be, my personal testimony. I decided to film this a few months ago. I had been knowing since I started Jesus Apparel, which I'll get to that as well. But I had known that I needed to do a testimony video for people who know me or don't know me, but more importantly, know me and wonder, how did you start this? They know exactly who I am and where I came from, and I kind of in their minds would be coming out of nowhere with this clothing line and this newfound love for Jesus. And anytime people ask me what I'm passionate about, that's what I say. I say I'm passionate about Jesus. So yeah, I think I'm gonna set this video up with basically telling you where I am right now, then circling back to my past, just a couple things in my past, and then circling back to now. And in the middle of that, I'm going to tell you how I feel, how I've gotten to Jesus Apparel, and how I changed and was saved and decided to turn my life around for the better. And another thing I want to say, I'm shooting this video on my iPhone. I'm in my living room. My phone is like leaned up against a candle, and I have a light, which is not a ring light, and it's sitting on a stool in front of me. And I have natural sunlight coming through the window. So anybody tells you you can't do something, like, you can do something. You have all the means. You have more means than you think you do. But I just want to give that disclaimer in case you hear like my neighbors rolling around on the floor like they do, or my air clicking on and off, and if I drink some water. I just want to give you guys a disclaimer. But I really want to thank you for tuning into my video. I don't know if I said that already or not. But to go back to why I started this video, I started a brand called Jesus Apparel in October of 2019. And I will tell you how I got to that as well. But with me being 30 years old, which to some may sound old, to some may sound young, but to be 30 years old and to start a business, and just to kind of change the course of where you thought you were going to go, I think it's important to share my story. Not that my story is any better than anybody else's or anything. I just know that God has been telling me that I need to share my story. And I had been trying to share it like a couple of months ago. I had met with my cousin, someone who I really honor his opinion. I had met with him, and when I told him that I wanted to do a testimony video, he agreed, and he kind of gave me some ideas because that's what he does. But he kind of put the fire under my butt, like, you need to do this, like, do this. People need this. Like, what better time than the present? And this was even before all the coronavirus stuff. Just things are just in the world are completely crazy, and the way that we get through things and make it out on the other side is just to help each other and to share experiences with each other. So again, like I said, I think it was like 2 or 3 months ago, I had tried shooting this video, and I had recorded it like over and over again, and I was like getting to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna post it. But it was just something in me where I just did not feel connected, and I felt like I was trying to tell you guys something that you wanted to hear. And I also, I don't know, I just feel like where I was at the time was just not right for what I wanted to do. And I mean, you're never gonna have a perfect time, but for some reason right now it just felt totally different. So that's a little disclaimer for that. Also, another thing I want to point out, I know I had said I was going to talk about like what's going on with me right now, or what's been going on with me. So I started that, my brand, Jesus Apparel. This is one of my hoodies, and I freaking love it. I started the brand Jesus Apparel. You can go watch my video to just hear more about my business. That's not really what this video is about. It's just about like how I got here. But you can watch that on my page, on this same page. Whatever details will be in the comments, in the bio or whatever you call that, caption area, whatever. So I started Jesus Apparel, and from the time I started that, from the time before that and the time after that, I just been kind of feeling personally attacked. And obviously that's from the enemy. I've been feeling personally attacked. But when you are, for me, I try to focus on Jesus. I try to pray as much as I can, read the word as much as I can. Just make sure that when I'm being attacked in all these different ways, that I know how to react. That's just the best way that I've learned to deal with life, is just to seek the word and to go back to the word and really focus there. And that has helped me so much. But just to tell you a little bit of things that have happened with me recently, I've always felt like I was never fitting in with these workplaces that I would work at. And as of recently, I had gotten a really good job back in August of 2019. The money was good, the opportunity was good. It was something I thought I would be able to grow with and focus on my business because I was working from home. And out of nowhere, I got laid off from that job, completely out of nowhere. And I was devastated because it was a job I actually liked. I don't like jobs. I do not like not having a 9 to 5. I never really have. And I've been working since I was 15, so it's not like I'm just saying I'm lazy, blah, 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 blah. It's just every time I am in these environments, I just feel like I'm being used in a way. I'm not valued. I just kind of feel like it's just not meant for me. I've made great friends in these environments. Some of these environments, I have friends that I've been friends with forever. And on the other hand, I've met people that I don't ever want to talk to ever again. So I'm kind of on like both ends of the spectrum with that. But anyways, when I got laid off in like November. So I was only at that job for a few months. I was blessed to get a severance, so I was okay for a month. But it was just a really, really scary time for me. And I ended up getting another job. But where I was, and like I just felt like I couldn't catch a break. And I got this new job. I was, felt blessed to get the job. But once I got there, I just felt like I wasn't connected to it. I probably was taking the opportunity for granted, but I just really felt like I don't want to be here. Like, I don't want to be with these personalities. I felt like everyone was really clicked up. And that could have just been my ego or it could have been me. Very well could have been me. But in that position, I just felt like I just didn't want to be there. And lo and behold, I got fired. I was only there for 1 month. And I'm laughing at it now because I can look back on it and laugh. But at the moment, I was really upset. But at the same time, I was relieved to leave that place because I knew it wasn't for me. But on the other hand, I'm 30 years old, okay? I need to get it together. Like, I can't keep skipping from job to job. I can't, even if part of it is not my fault, I have to really figure it out. And I've never been the type of person who's like, I'm gonna roll over and give up. I just can't do this anymore. So once I was fired from that job, I was really frustrated. I was relieved to leave that job. Even though I knew it was gonna be hard and I was gonna be struggling financially, I was relieved. That's the only way that I can put it. And I had been learning from previous experiences, which I will talk about, is I have to take ownership for who I am and what I do and my actions. I have to take accountability for those. So in that time, I knew that part of it was my problem. I knew that my coworker kind of had an issue with me. I kind of just felt like people had problems with me that they weren't telling me about. And that was one of the reasons I got let go. No one was discussing these things with me, but I felt it, and it made me build up this animosity. And then I just turned into this person like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to talk to y'all. And that's obviously a terrible way to react. And I know if I could do it over again, I don't care if I didn't like that job or not, that I would change my behavior. But I just wanted to point all that out so you guys can kind of see where I was at the time, And this was back in January when I lost that job. So I got laid off in November, fired in January. What the H? Like, I was going through it mentally. But I'm gonna put a pause on that part of the story, because that will kind of bring you back to today, literally today. And I kind of want to go back to tell you guys a little bit about how little old me just came about, and not like birds and bees type of thing, but like how I developed into a person. So I won't go through everything in my childhood, because who has the time and who really wants to hear all of that? But for me, one of the biggest things that happened to me growing up was losing my dad. My father was famous. A lot of you may know, a lot of you may not know. His name is Roger Troutman. He is someone who basically pioneered the talk box. He didn't create it, but one of his biggest songs was California Love. A lot of people know that song. He's the voice on that song. So, excuse me, when I was 9 years old is when he passed. April 25th. That's like 3 weeks to my birthday. My birthday is May 12th. He was such a light in my life, such an inspiration. And although he was famous and I was old enough to understand what that meant and what that was like, at the end of the day, he was just my dad. I loved him so much, still love him to this day, still talk to him sometimes, pray to him, and I will always, you never get over something like that. It never gets easier. It just becomes something you get used to. So losing him was hard. My mother was with him on and off for 20 years. They were still together when he passed away, and he was just an amazing father. All the music stuff, put all the music stuff to the side, he was amazing. He was everything. He treated me like a princess. He's one of the reasons why people in my family call me princess, and he just always put me on this pedestal. So when he passed away, I was 9 years old. So if any of you have lost anybody at a young age, then you understand. It's something you really don't understand. It's something you really can't explain. It's not. It's something that's just this huge thing that you can't put into words. This huge thing that your 9-year-old brain cannot make sense. And a lot of the stuff from my childhood I don't remember, and I think it's because of that. A lot of my friends, like now, and just my memory period is trash. Like my friends will say, "You remember this? You remember that?" I'm like, "No." My mom's like, "You remember when we did this and when we did that?" I'm like, "No." And I think a lot of it is because when my dad passed, my brain couldn't, make it make sense. And then this is a real thing. When you go through something traumatic that your body literally can't handle, your mind literally can't handle, it basically goes into overdrive, and it kind of takes over, and it just goes into survival mode. And I kind of feel like that's what happened to me at 9. And if you think about that, what? Like 9 years old going through something like that? And I mean, people go through terrible, terrible, horrible things, but I'm just talking about my experience right now. But, sorry. So with that experience, I remember the day I found out. I remember I was at my grandma's house. My mom called my grandma. My grandma was like, "What?" I remember her reaction and everything. I remember almost everything from that day. So my grandma rushes us back to my mom's house. My mom sits me down, and I remember my aunt being there. And I remember my mom telling me, and I remember not really getting it. I remember crying because it is sad, but as a kid, I just didn't get it. My mom tells me, I remember my aunt telling me, and this is actually my mom's cousin, but she's my mom's age, so I'll call her my aunt, and she was telling me how she lost her father at the same age as me. I just remember all these things, and then I just was kind of like, I stopped crying, and I just sat there, and I told my mom I wanted to go play. My cousins were up at the park, and I wanted to go play with them at the park. That's not a normal reaction for somebody who loses their father. But when I think back on it, I'm a kid. There's no way I know how to cope with that. So, fast forward to, well, not really fast forward, but just to give you a little more like small details about that happening to me. again, my mother lost the love of her life, so she had to take care of me. Me and my mother are super close. We butt heads about a lot of things, but my mom is like practically a best friend to me. And the way she took over and made sure I was okay, I want to say this because you may hear what I say next and think like, well, that's not healthy, that's not right. My mom did everything she felt she could do for me, and I think she did an amazing job. So I got to the point where after that happened, for me, losing my father was horrible. I'm sure there's a ton of you watching this who lost your father. But for me, my dad was famous. So that happening to me was something that I couldn't hide. I couldn't just go home and cope with it. I had to go to school and hear about kids talking about it. And kids are mean. Kids saying mean, awful things to me while I'm at school. Seeing it on the news. Hearing the songs on the radio. Hearing it on the news. Turn on the TV. Everything that I saw during that time was boom, 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 boom in my face. Like I had no time to just kind of sit down and cope with it. And because of that, I think it made me kind of curl up into this shell. Like I didn't want to deal with it anymore. And as far as my mom goes, my mom is super strong. Taking care of me from 9 to adulthood. She took care of me all my life, did everything she could do, worked her way up to an executive level at an amazing company. It's just always been a hard worker. And my mom being so strong made me feel like I had to be super strong. And I hated to see her cry. And I think, honestly, I didn't want to see her hurt because it hurt me. So I learned how to suppress my emotions. I learned how to curl up. I learned how to not talk about things that bother me. And I think it just stemmed from me wanting to be strong for my mom. I remember her crying at the funeral, obviously. And I remember her crying one other time that I saw, but I don't think she knew I saw her crying. And from then on out, I'm like, no, we're not doing this anymore. Like, no. So his songs would come on the radio. If I could change it before she would notice, or if she was inside of a store, if I could change it, or like, you know, you park, you go in the gas station, come right back out. I don't want y'all to think my mom was just leaving me in the car at like 10. But I would change the radio so that she wouldn't hear these songs. Or it was an R. Kelly song that was really sad. Sorry, I know a lot of people don't want to hear about R. Kelly, but he redid that Turn Back the Hands of Time song, and that would come on. I would turn it off. Like, I would turn my dad's songs, I would turn everything off. I just did not want to see my mom hurt. But deep down, I think I just didn't know how to deal with my own hurt. I never went to therapy or anything. I just, with my mom, we just went through life. Right after my dad died, my mom got me a cat. And like, you would think like, what, a cat? But like, that was a way of her being like, let me give you something. Let me give you something to occupy your time, because I'm a child. Like, that's where we react from. Things that occupy our time. So I just wanted to put that disclaimer out there just to kind of tell you guys how I felt like, because a lot of people say that I'm mean. A lot of people say that I'm tough. A lot of people say that I'm just hard. And I think that's where it stemmed from. So me working on breaking down that barrier is from years and years and years of trauma, basically. Me trying to deal with something, but deal with it on my own and by myself. So again, I had a great childhood. I can't say that I had a bad childhood. I have an amazing family. I had, you know, some drama in school with petty, stupid female type stuff. But other than that, like, I had an amazing childhood. I thank my family. I thank God for my family and my mother every single day. So, again, and a lot of my testimony is gonna go back to what happened with my dad, because I lost him so tragically. I lost him so soon. And a lot of it, as I got older, I realized this is why I'm the way that I am. This is why I behave this way. This is why I look to these things. I look to these people, is because of that. And I never really had luck with like men in my life. Another father figure that I had, he just turned out to be somebody that I couldn't rely on. Somebody I realized is just a horrible person. And having him as a child and then thinking he'd be the one to walk me down the aisle when I get married, turns out to be a man that I don't even want to be associated with. So there's another father figure that I feel abandoned by. So that happened. I'm not gonna go into detail about that because I'm not. So I continue to look for, I think, again, growing up, I was popular, I was fun, I was whatever, all the things that don't matter. But getting into like my later teenage years and 20s, going to college and just going through life, I noticed that I kind of had issues with guys. And before I met the first person I really was in love with, I really didn't get attached to guys. I was just like, whatever. I'm having fun. I'm in college. I'm living it up. I don't care about none of y'all. But one thing, and just to kind of just jump right into what I'm about to start talking about now, I met someone and we ended up getting married. A lot of people don't know that I was married. A lot of people don't know that I'm divorced. A lot of people don't know a lot because that's why this testimony video is hard for me to do, because I don't share my feelings. I don't share my life. I don't share things because, number one, I don't really trust too many people. And if I share something with you, or if you do something for me, or if I open up to you and you throw it in my face, or you know, basically throw it in my face or make me feel bad about it, I will never share anything with you ever again. And that's just another part of me just being closed up. I feel like being hurt so much in life, only way I know how to react is just to close myself off. So, again, I got married. I met someone when I was in college. And I do really feel like I should tell this story, but for testimony purposes, I'm not going to go into 100,000 details about this. And I have no beef with the person I was married to. I don't want to dog nobody. That's why I didn't even give the name to the father figure that I was talking about earlier. I don't want that to be this. I'm just sharing my story because it's mine. So I met a person in college. For the first time, I met someone where I feel like I didn't get sick of him. Because a lot of times I would meet guys, I'm like, ugh, I'm sick of you. Ugh, I'm sick of you. Like, whatever. And I was a player in college. Like, I didn't care. So I meet this person, and for the first time ever in my life, and I was like 19, this was the first person I ever felt like I just didn't get sick of. And it didn't matter what we went through. It didn't matter how he treated me. I just didn't get sick of this person. And to remind you guys how I said my dad treated me like a princess, I was constantly meeting guys that were just like, either didn't want anything out of life or just was just like rude, and I wouldn't say rude to me. When I was younger, I would always meet guys that really liked me, whatever. But I just feel like the way my dad treated me and the way that my dad was just so loving and caring and just put me on this pedestal, the people that I was like letting in my life were not meeting up to those standards. And nobody's ever going to live up to the standards of my dad. But I just know that I wasn't, I guess because I was just so confused and I really didn't deal with my father's death, that I kind of didn't really value myself. At the time I thought I did because, you know, I cared about how I looked. I cared about my future. I was trying to get somewhere. It wasn't like I was just in life lollygagging, whatever. But I just can tell by the people I chose to be in my life, I didn't value myself. So, me and him dating on and off, he's not a bad person. I never want to say that people are bad people. He wasn't a bad person, but I knew that I deserved better. Deep down, I knew I deserved better, but being so young and naive and just I think I just thought that anything can change, anything is possible, I guess is my mindset with that. But anyways, I started dating this person on and off for like 3-ish years, and we started getting pretty serious. and he went off to the military. So because we were getting serious, we started talking about getting married. And we wanted to get married, I guess. And I know this sounds crazy, but I'm 30 now. So I'm looking back on something from when I was 20 and 21. And we decided, let's just say we decided we wanted to get married. So fast forward to us getting married. A little bit before we got married, or maybe a little bit before we got engaged, like things were okay. He was never the nicest guy. He's not a guy who's gonna be like, oh, you're the best person to me. You're so amazing. I love you so much. He never really was that person. And I think in my mind, I always thought I could change him into what I wanted him to be. He didn't have the best family life. He didn't have the best upbringing. So whatever, that's just another disclaimer. So I decided to marry this person. When we got married, since he was in the military, I moved to where he was. And it was a little small town in Oregon. Basically, everybody was white. Only a few minorities. And literally, when I say a few, I mean a few. So I moved there to be with him. And we had already gotten married, but we were planning a big wedding. And during that time, he was pretty much mistreated in the military. And it was just, whatever. I'm not going to tell all this man's business. But he turned into a person that I didn't know anymore. And him going from a person who's just kind of dry and whatever, he turned into a person that was just, to me, he was just a mean person. And I always describe it as feeling like he was possessed. And I know that sounds extreme and crazy, but me being in the situation, it got to the point where he was treating me the way he was treating me, to the point where I just felt belittled, and I felt like I didn't like myself anymore. And I just got to a really, really low point to where I was isolated from my family and friends, obviously, because I lived so far away. But I just really got to the point where to put it simply, I'd say that I was in a verbally abusive relationship. And it took me a long time to really say that, because when you say you're in an abusive relationship, it's like, well, was he beating you up? And it's like, no, he wasn't beating me up. But did I feel like my best when I was with that person? No. Were we having these wonderful conversations? No. I was at a point where I was just feeling like I was constantly not good enough for somebody. Like I was doing everything I could to be the perfect wife, and it just was never enough. And he had personal things going on with him and things I didn't know about until after. But I just kept trying to force myself to get through this relationship, and I kept praying. And I had always been brought up to believe in Jesus. My mom raised me to believe in Jesus. My mom raised me to pray and all of that. I went to church all my life. But once I got older, I really just wasn't focusing on that. Like, I was young, I was in college, I was partying. I've always been a party girl. I will say that with no shame. It's always how I've been. And when I got to that point, anyways, back to the relationship part of it, I started just praying to hope that he would get better, or that he would treat me better, or that our relationship would get better, whatever. And I know I was in that relationship for a reason. In that relationship, my cousin gave me my first Bible. So I started praying in that relationship. I started reading the Bible. But one thing that you have to realize, if you don't have someone that's teaching you the Bible, you're not going to know what you're reading. You're not going to understand it. You're not going to be able to apply it to your life. It's going to be really confusing. So that's why it's important to go to church. People say, what do I need to go to church for? And I'm not trying to tell nobody what to do, but going to church is important so you can understand the word. The word is all we have. The word is everything. If you don't understand the word, what direction are you going in? So I started praying, but I was praying for the wrong things. I was praying for God to fix him. I wouldn't say praying for the wrong things, but I was praying for God to fix him. I was praying for God to fix our relationship, when at the end of the day, I don't think God put me in that relationship. I think I put myself in that relationship. I said, I'm marrying this person, and no matter how many red flags I see, no matter how many times I think I need to back out of this huge wedding, I still decided to do it anyways. That's not God. That's me. You can take charge of your own life too. God may tell you to go this way, and you say, no, I'm going this way. he looking at you like, are you serious? You need to go this way, but you're gonna go this way anyways. And then when you get out of it, you're like, why, God? Why did this happen to me? And God's like, I told you to go this way. So, sorry, you know. But I decided to marry that person anyways. And to kind of end this part of the chapter, I mean, it doesn't end, it kind of just trickles over, just like how my relationship with my father and him passing trickled on. This relationship trickles on to me getting older as well, getting past that and not really past that. But I started trying to pray to figure out the relationship, and it got so bad, like some parts of it were so bad, and if people judge me for this, they judge me. I don't know what to say, but I got to the point where I used to wish that that person was gone. You know what I mean when you say gone? When I say gone, I did not know how to get out of the relationship. I felt like I was just like trapped. Like I felt like I was stuck in something. I didn't know how I got myself into it. I felt stupid every single day for being in it. And honestly, the person I with made me feel stupid. Just everything I did was wrong in this relationship. And again, I don't want anybody to think, again, like I said, I don't have any ill will to this person. And that's all thanks to God and just moving on. You have to move on from situations. If you stay in it, you stay in it. But ultimately, that relationship never got any better. He got out of the Coast Guard, so we moved to Chicago. We got a place in Chicago, and we had all the same problems. I thought, okay, cool. We're out of the Coast Guard. We're out of away from those racist people. Everything's going to be better. It never got better. Never got better. It got probably maybe worse. Oregon was, I don't even really want, Oregon is just puts a bad taste in my mouth. But Chicago, I still love Chicago. I live there, whatever. But being there, I thought it would be better, and it wasn't better. So ultimately, I just felt so belittled. I felt so small. I felt so unwanted. I didn't like myself. I really didn't have any I have still the same friends, but I just really felt like I wasn't connected to them like I wanted to be, and all of these crazy things. So that relationship ended, and all the things I was praying for happened. Our relationship imploded in a big way. I made a decision that wasn't me, and our relationship exploded, and we broke up. And I was living in Chicago by myself. He moved out, and I was living there. There's the air. Sorry if you can hear that. I was living there. He moved out. I was staying by myself. I had a job. Wasn't gonna cut it. I had to get 2 jobs. He moved away to another state, and we were still married. And we continued to be married for 3 years before we were separated, not living together. But we didn't get divorced until 2018. So I was still married to a person, still feeling like I loved this person, but also thinking if somebody loves you, they don't treat you like that. He started going through his own problems and realizing all of his demons, and all of this was happening over the span of us being separated. I stayed in Chicago because I didn't want to break the lease. I didn't want to ruin my credit. And I ended up just moving out of Chicago on a whim, and I moved to Atlanta, which is where I still am to this day. So when I moved to Atlanta, I felt like I was just going to get a fresh start, when ultimately I was just running away from my problems. If you don't deal with your problems and you just take off and you run away from them, they're just like behind you, like, hey, here I am, like, and then you're running and they're like, well, here I am still. Like, that's basically what I did. I was running away from my problems. I never dealt with it, and I thought I was just going to have this brand new life. And ultimately, moving to Atlanta was one of the best decisions I've made in my entire life. So I can't knock being in Atlanta or moving to Atlanta, because I found my purpose here, which is amazing. And I thank God every single day for that. But I moved to Atlanta, and when I say, when you don't deal with your problems, you create more problems. And me leaving this relationship feeling depressed, feeling sad, feeling shameful, feeling regretful, not really knowing how the Bible works or how Jesus and God's grace works, thinking I'm going to hell for thinking about getting a divorce, trying to force a relationship, trying to stick a square into a circle, trying to do all of these things that don't match because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I moved to Atlanta. I started, trying to date while having this secret, knowing I'm separated and I'm not telling people. So trying to casually date, making friendships with people who really are not my friends, people who really don't like me, and ending up in a living situation that was horrible. And all of my old problems that I tried to run away from just came back up again. And I became this person that I didn't like and I didn't understand and I didn't want to see anymore. I was cussing up a storm, which whatever, a lot of people cuss, it's not a big deal, but cussing up a storm, cussing people out. I would argue with anybody. I didn't care about having problems with anyone. And that's kind of how I was in my early 20s too. And I just think it just comes from being angry and confused about losing my father and just other problems that I made, just whatever may be happening in my life. And while I was in Atlanta, I just started seeing myself for who I was, but not who I was, who I didn't want to be. I was in the mirror and just not even recognizing myself, like hating myself, not wanting to even be alone with myself. And again, I had to live in this situation that I did not like with a person that I didn't like me, and it was awful. And I felt alone. I'm in a new city. I have a good job. That was a blessing, but I didn't know how to, I felt like I was in a ditch and I just couldn't get out, and there was nobody to get me out. But since I had, in my relationship, I started seeking God, little by little seeking God, and I continued that when I was in Atlanta. And I just started making these decisions, like, I don't want to be this person anymore. I was the person where my best friend would like have to give people disclaimers, like, Paris is coming, Deshaun play. Like, what? Like, why? I don't want to be that person. Like, don't argue with these guys. Like, don't argue with these girls. Don't argue with people. Like, that's the person that I was. And that's just not the person that I ever want to be. Ever. In a million years. So, one of the biggest things I noticed is hitting rock bottom doesn't mean, it means a different thing for everybody. You may get hit rock bottom because you're an alcoholic, you're a drug addict, you're into some weird sexual things, you are dangerous, it could be so many different things. But my rock bottom was literally being sick of my own crap. I was sick of my own stuff. I was tired of it. And I got to the point where like I was like ranting on social media and people thought it was funny. Like it was so funny for me to like put up these negative posts and just say these negative stupid things, and people thought it was funny. And at the time I realized like I was really having a nervous breakdown. Like I was going through life just being this negative, nasty person, and I didn't know how to stop. But I literally just got to the point where I was like, I really am tired of my own crap. And I started reading the word more. I started to just separate myself from people in my life that just I knew were not any good for me. And the dark demon cloud I felt like I was carrying around with me from my marriage and from these negative people that I was like sharing time and space with, I decided to do whatever I could to let it go. And it doesn't happen overnight. I thought when I got out of that terrible relationship that I was just gonna pop out and I was just gonna be like, opportunity, everything's great, and I'm meeting this person and I'm gonna fall in love and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. No, it doesn't work like that, because if you don't deal with your crap, you can't move on. And so I started to deal with my crap, and it was really, really dark and scary for me, because I started to realize like perfect little Paris is not perfect little Paris. I have problems, I have issues, I just decide not to share them with people, and that's one of my, I guess maybe it's a flaw, I'm not sure, but I decided to start making changes. I started, again, reading my word more. I stopped ranting on social media. I stopped arguing with people. That was one of the harder things to do, is to stop arguing with people, to learn when to walk away, to learn when to not engage in arguments. Even if people say, if we're not arguing, we're debating. Well, your debate is bad for my peace. Like, I'm not doing it. So I learned to do those things. And During that time, I had a really good job, and I ended up getting like making more money than I had made in my entire life. I started working out more. I moved into my own apartment, so I was finally free from my roommate situation, and I was able to just keep discovering myself and keep trying. And in that job that I had, I met a spiritual friend, I like to call her, because she really had helped me with my relationship with God and teaching me so much about grace. Grace is awesome. If you don't know more about God's grace, you need to read it. You need to just Google what everything in the Bible says about God's grace, because that's when we start to dig ourselves deeper in these holes, because we're guilty and we regret and we feel so stupid for all the mistakes that we made in the past. But ultimately, God's grace deletes all of that. So I ended up finding a church through my job, which, blessing on top of a blessing, I started going to the church that I've been going to for 4 years now, in Atlanta. And I found a pastor finally that I really felt like I could relate to. My pastor growing up is awesome. My pastor from Chicago, he was awesome as well, but it's just something about the pastor that I have now that I just felt 100% connected to. And the way he teaches the word is just everything that I've needed. And I started going to that church. And little by little, I just started making changes in myself. It really starts with you. It ultimately matters who you have in your life as well, but it ultimately starts with you. So I started deciding, like, I can't keep these same people in my life. Like, I can't keep making these same stupid mistakes and decisions and think that everything's going to just miraculously become great. Like, I'm not going to sit here and do the devil's work and get rewarded for it and then be depressed. That's basically what happens when you go after what's appeasing to the eye. Ultimately, you're just doing basically the opposite of what God wants for you. And I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to be that person anymore. So when I started trying to change myself and just be better and just work like one step at a time, just trying to improve myself. I'm not perfect. Still to this day, I have things that I want to change about myself or improve about myself. But when I found this church is when I found my purpose. And I started praying. Again, I told you guys I was making a lot of money for someone who was 26 or 25, however old I was. And I just felt like, I have all this money. What am I doing with it? I started praying to God for my purpose. I started asking him, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? How can I better myself? And how can I help people with this money? I know I could have just went down the street to a charity place and gave them whatever amount of money every month. But I really felt in my heart and my soul that I was supposed to be doing something bigger than that. And I'm going to pause the video right here because I feel like it's really long. So I'm going to give you guys a break. And then you can come back and watch the second part of the video.